This was unearthed by a researcher at Wellesley College. What she found is that in the 1940s, doctors at the U.S. Public Health Service, a part of the U.S. government, were interested in studying syphilis and penicillin. They had penicillin. They weren't quite sure how well it worked. It was in the early days of penicillin. So they went to Guatemala, and they found some prostitutes with syphilis, and they arranged for the prostitutes to have sex with prisoners in jail and also with patients who were in a mental hospital, to infect those patients and then give them penicillin to see if it worked. Now, sometimes the patients didn't get sick, so what they did was and this is really horrible, they took their arms and their penises and would abrade them, would sort of rough them up and pour the bacteria onto that skin. And then when that didn't work, they would sometimes just inoculate into the spine. They would do a spinal puncture and give the syphilis that way. And then they would try the penicillin to see how it worked. And let me read a little bit from the apology. It's just coming, today. This happened.
Hang on, this is a U.S. government we're talking about.
Correct.
Human guinea pigs.
Human guinea pigs,
All right.
sponsored by the U.S. government. So here's the apology. We deeply regret that it happened, and we apologize to all the, to all the individuals who were affected by such abhorrent research practices. I know, it's almost like you don't know what to say.
I mean, we think about, you remember the Tuskegee Institute, the research there that they did on African Americans. Before we get to that, we'll get to that part of it. Why did it take 60 years to come to light?
You know what? Apparently nobody knew about this. This researcher at Wellesley College was looking into the experiments done in Tuskegee and found that this one doctor named John Cutler, that before he did Tuskegee, he went to Guatemala. So she found these documents and she brought them to light. As a matter of fact, we called the Guatemalan embassy this morning to get a response, and they didn't really even have anything to say. They said this was new to them. They had just heard about it.
And we mentioned the Tuskegee experiment. Is there any relationship?
Yeah, there is a relationship because it was the same doctor, but there is a difference, which I think is important to point out. In Tuskegee, what they did, and this was in the 30s through the 70s, with African-American men, right, African-American men. These were men who naturally had syphilis. They had just caught it on their own, but the government had a medicine for the syphilis. They had penicillin, and they didn't use it. They chose not to use it so they could study the natural course of the disease. So it's, both are horrible. I don't want to compare one to the other. Both are horrible, but they are different.
I really, it's unfathomable, as you said, and I saw you reading it, just getting choked up there because I can't believe it.
It's so disturbing. And, thank goodness today there are different standards there. At that time, it was like the Wild West. You could pretty much do whatever you wanted. Now there are standards for it so that those kinds of things we hope don't happen.
Secretary of State, Health and Human Services Secretary, both apologizing as well. The government should apologize for this. It's horrific. This doesn't live up to our standards as Americans. No. And thank God, hopefully this does not happen now. There are standards in place. You would never get away with doing this now.